Welcome back. Now that we've got the engine bay cleaned up enough to actually get in here and start working on it without the fear of dirt and crud and grime and mice feces falling into the cylinders. This car hasn't ran in roughly 22 years according to the state inspection sticker on the windshield. It was last licensed in 2001. Since it hasn't ran in roughly 20 years and it is in the condition it is, I'm not just going to try to crank it over and start stressing systems. We're going to start by putting some oil down in the cylinders. See there in the shot, I like to use Marvel Mystery Oil. What's in it? No idea. It's mystery. But it works well for lots of things. You can put it in your oil, you can put it in your gas. It's really safe. A lot of people will use that or some kind of oil, two-stroke oil. Even diesel fuel has enough oil in it. If that's all you got laying around, anything to get those piston rings kind of soaked down and get some lubrication to this top end. So let's get started. Let's pull these spark plugs out, see what kind of shape they're in, and put some of that oil in there. We'll let it sit for about 24 hours. If you washed everything down like me before you're doing this, you want to make sure that there's no water or grime or feces or crud left down in the spark plug holes. There was still water and stuff in there when I got out this morning, so I already cleaned all that out. I figured that wasn't very interesting for you guys to see, so I did clean that out. Nothing's going to be falling down in our cylinders during this. I want some penetrating oil if they're gonna fight. Let's see what this first spark plug looks like. They are Bosch Supers. Actually not too bad. I don't know if you guys could see that, but not too bad actually. I think we'll be able to clean those up at least for our first test fire, if that's how far we make it. But so okay. And that spark plug's about the same. You can see there was still crud in there. This car's been sitting a long time. We'll clean those up with a wire brush though. Keep going. Yes, I dropped my ratchet down into the dark depths of hell down there. And they're all really looking the same as far as I can't get my camera to focus on it. But as far as air fuel mixture, they all look to be about the same, maybe a little rich. It's probably compensating for bad vacuum lines. There's probably some leaks, so. You can tell I cleaned all these out because these spark plug wires are coming right off. Yes, I already fought with those. Off camera. Oh yeah. Looking for my ratchet I dropped. Of course, I can't reach it. It's tight down here with the turbo, the exhaust, wastegate. Okay. Getting me wobbly. And it's starting to rain. Tried to get out here in between rain showers when the sun was shining, but I missed the perfect window. Last one. It's oil time. Very much like the others, but nothing concerning from the spark plugs, at least. Okay. So we're using today to soak down our cylinders and piston rings. People always ask how do you know how much to put in there? You can't put too much. It's just going to come out and make a huge mess anyway. You can't put too little. It also has to do with the angle of the block in the cylinders. So this one doesn't sit vertical or horizontal. It sits at about a 45. This is basically half of a 928 V8 engine. So those pistons are sitting in there. Get the right angle. Yeah, at about a 45. So you need to get about a cup and a half of oil in there for it to sit level and coat the top of the rings as well as the bottom. Now you're probably going to have a cylinder that's at top dead center. It's at the top of its stroke. You're not going to get any oil in there. You're going to get a little tiny bit, but you're not going to get enough to coat it. And that's just how it is. As we start to slowly rotate it, just remember which one you didn't get a lot of oil on, and as you get the engine to rotate, you'll be able to get more oil in there. Hopefully the engine rotates. Cylinder number 1. Good. It's obviously not at the top of the cylinder. Okay, that's about too much. I can see it, so we filled it up. I said that'll be fine. It's all going to come out in the end anyway. I was just graduating high school last time this car ran. And I actually had a 924 naturally aspirated when I was 16 years old and in high school. Okay. One of these has got to be close to the top. Pretty good there. Moving on to the last one. Home stretch. Okay. Now we're going to let that sit for about 24 hours. Let those rings soak. And just get some lubrication to the top side there. Come back out tomorrow. Hopefully it won't be raining. Forecast looks good so far. So that's it for today. "24 hours later, here we are back working on Tiger Pussy, the 1982 Porsche 924 Turbo. Let the oil set for 24 hours in the cylinders. I'm going to remove the air box because it needs to come off anyway. What do you think? Rat's nest? No rat's nest. Maybe some rat carcasses, mice carcass, fecal matter. Anyway, we need to get all that off, and that'll give me access to the crank bolt down there, where we're gonna hopefully turn this over a couple times and get some revolutions in it, and try to feel for any places where it catches. Hopefully it turns over, period, but we just want to check that out. So let's get started. Should have seen that coming. Need a little PB blaster here. PB blaster is my choice of penetrating oil for getting old junk, old rusted things unstuck. Top of the airbox is obviously already loose. You can tell the rubber straps are long gone. Those decayed and fell away years ago, I'm sure. Okay, my first peek. The side of it doesn't look too bad. Some oil residue in there, probably from the turbo. Rat's nest or no rat's nest? No rat's nest. How about that? I clearly got a little water in there, pressure washing it, but you know, the filter isn't as bad as I thought it would be. We'll be replacing that, just in case you're curious. .10mm bolts here on the airbox. It's going to be about a 12. And we got some more 10s down here on the side. Well, I don't think there's any coolant in here anyway. I'm going to take that hose off rather than disconnect this. Again, that's just going to open it up and give me more room. Using a 6mm on these hose clamps. Boy, it's really on there. just need a bigger screwdriver. Oh, there's coolant in there. That's kind of a good sign. The system stayed somewhat closed for... Oh, well, that was handy. Plug that off as well as I can there. I can at least see the bolt better now. Maybe not that much more access with those, that radiator line there, but that's about 20, 21 maybe. I have to go rummage for some sockets, and the proper tool for this is a 24 millimeter for that crankshaft bolt down there. And my breaker bar here basically saved me some effort. Let's see if this thing turns over by hand. Can we hand crank it? First, let's plug that guy up. So when we crank this, there's all that oil in those cylinders, and it's going to want to come out all over the place. We're going to make a mess, but it looks pretty dry anyway, so it needs a good coating of oil. So let's do it. Another truth on this step. Big step here. Is it locked up after sitting 22 years, or will she turn? Let's take it out of gear, shall we? That was an important step. We're not going to have any spark, so there's no compression. The fuel tanks are actually, the fuel tank is disconnected. There's no fuel pump. So I'm just saying there's no way that anything unexpected is going to happen. We just want to rotate this a couple times. Oh yeah. Not a lot of room for this large of an apparatus. But that feels good. I can hear the oil coming out. You can see the rag soaking it up. It's getting easier. Wonder if I can turn it by hand. Yeah, there we go. Just turn the alternator. That'll work for a second. I got a couple good rotations out of it. Oil is running down the block. It's good. It's great. Wonderful. That means our next step is going to be either spark or fuel. I like to do spark first. Get that out of the way before fuel starts going everywhere, and then disconnect it, work on fuel last. But before I work on spark, I am actually going to connect a battery, make sure there's no electrical fires or smoke, and I want to see if I can get the starter to engage and turn this engine without spark plugs in it. And then I'm going to do a compression check while we're at that, just to get an idea of the shape of the internals. Looks bad on the outside, but could be decent on the inside. So next step, compression check. Stay tuned. I said I know I wanted to do a compression check next, and I do. That is my next goal, basically. But I still have all this oil in the cylinders, and the best way to get that out is to use the starter to crank the engine and just blow it out of there, and then make a big mess. Before I hook up a battery to this scary wiring mess, I taped off a bunch of wires. This had a crazy sound system in it. It had the factory security system on, as well as an Alpine aftermarket security system. Lots of wires. A lot of that's been kind of ripped out and partially removed, so I taped off any bare wires that I found. Also, I don't want it to fire. I don't want any spark at all while I turn the key. So I removed the ignition coil wire from the distributor to the coil. Take that off, no more spark. So we won't have to worry about that. Next, I don't want any fuel going through the fuel distribution system here, the CIS. So I'm just gonna undo these lines. So there's no chance of any fuel coming in. It's all disconnected out back anyway, but I don't know what's in there. I don't want it moving around. So I'm just going to undo all that. It's all driven by vacuum, so it won't have any pressure with those loosened up. So let's do that and take off this timing belt cover. There's just 2 bolts. Give that a quick visual once over before we go hooking up a battery and see what happens when we turn the key. Okay. We'll start with the fuel here. It's up front. 17 millimeter on these larger ones. These are your fuel lines. Coming in from the back of the car. There is fuel coming out of there. Look at that. It's varnish. It's very much so varnish. Glad I did that though. One of these will be in and one of these will be returned most likely. banjo connectors is what they call these. Yep, we'll replace those anyway. Those are crush washers. One of them just fell, and that is fine, like I said. Okay. Smaller ones are going to be a 12 millimeter. And these are the lines that go to each cylinder, your fuel injectors here. Inside of here is a really thin diaphragm, like a rubber diaphragm. Quite sure it's toast. This unit looks scary, complicated. It's really not. They have a little affordable, cheap rebuild kit for these. Comes with a new diaphragm and some O-rings, and so I'll get one of those picked up. I'm gonna need to order a timing belt anyway. I honestly think we'll start there. I also want to add just a little bit of oil to this. The oil doesn't look bad, but it doesn't have any viscosity left in it, and it's a little low. But it looks almost brand new. Definitely not black. So aside from the condition of this car being in horrible shape, we're seeing some good signs. The coolant was green, and there's no oil in it. And it says that the coolant system was still a complete closed system when this stopped running. Fuel just came out of here. Let's get that timing belt cover off, sorry. There's just 2 bolts on this cover. I'm using a 10 millimeter socket to get these off. It's bound to happen. Especially anytime you got a 10 millimeter on there. Gonna drop it. I don't know the answer to this, but I was thinking this came off for inspection a little easier. It's actually got good tension. I know it's bad, but it's not really bad. I guess more has to come off to get that out. Belts kind of look in the way, don't they? Huh. I thought that would have come off a little easier. Maybe the intake has to come off first. Well, you know what that means. We're going to put that back on. Because all we're looking to do is crank this over enough times to blow all that oil out. So once that's out, starter's turning the engine over. And that means we can do a compression check. One step closer. Ignition wire off. We just want to add a little oil there. A few lines are disconnected. Okay. Just going to put us some good old cheap oil in there. This has been sitting in my garage for about a year now. I don't remember why I picked it up, but I just need some cheap oil to run through it the first time, for the first few starts, to get all the grime moved down from the top. Otherwise, I've changed the oil twice, so we are going to do this method. And this is still fine oil for what we're doing. Not racing anybody. Be getting up to high temps. Just want things to start getting moved around, get oil pressure built up, things lubed up. I don't want anything to get sucked in there, but I don't want my rag to get sucked in there either, so I want to tape it up. Just have to be careful for the time being. Battery time. We want to put in a battery. We want to check for smoke. We want to check for fire. Make sure nothing's getting hot, and just take our time doing that. See, never trust previous owner's wiring. You just never know. That'll be our ground. That grounds inside here on the body, and then there's another wire that grounds from the body out here to the motor. So I can see that we have at least 2 proper ground connections and placements. That's actually good. Ignition's off. Taped up all the wire ends that I could find, and the interior's been stripped out actually. It was really gross. I've already shown pictures of what the interior looked like in a video, so that's all been pulled out, and I did find more wiring in there that I taped up for the time being, so I have time to deal with it properly. All right, let's see if we get fired or smoke. We do not want that, by the way. So far, so good. No fire, no smoke. I'm gonna check inside. Okay, so one of my fears has come true, and I'm going to show you what we've got here. Apologies for the shaky video. Like I said, this has an aftermarket Alpine security system. It used to have the factory one there. As I came inside for first time with a battery hooked up, we've got flashing lights. There's also a unit down here labeled Alpine Security, and it's clicking away. I'm not sure why. There is a system on the fob here, and I guess we'll have to try some of this. But we do have power running. Constant. All right, well, let's see what happens when we put the key in, now that we've got you in here with me. Key is on the right side because these were originally supposed to be Audis. Porsche always has their ignitions on the left. It is in neutral. Got some dash lights. A couple idiot lights coming on. Odometer looks to read 106,000. Not too bad, actually. Okay, let's give her a crank and see if it explodes or if the starter turns. No, of course not. Yeah, I think we've got security system troubles. Well, time has taught us anything about car alarms. Answer is in the key fob. So I'm gonna work on that. Oh. It's actually got a battery that works in it. The door's just locked or unlocked. Well, let's try the ignition again. That'd be crazy if this thing has a security system that actually works. Looks to be from the 90s. Wrong key. For God's sake. It's a hell of a security system. I gotta set you down. Got some troubles. Just can't get the key to turn again. Okay. There might be smoke coming from the yeah, we've got smoke. I'm going to disconnect the battery quickly. Okay. Battery is disconnected. Okay. Well, I'll be taking that apart and figuring out why we almost had a fire. Still smoking out of there a little bit. Okay, that's probably enough for this video. Always good to end them with smoke. Stay tuned.